There is a base in the middle of the Indian Ocean that the United States military considers one of its most important and most secure strategic assets in the entire world. It sits on a tiny coral atoll called Diego Garcia, inside the Chagos Archipelago, roughly 2,500 miles from the coast of Iran. It hosts American B-2 Spirit stealth bombers, the aircraft that cost over $2 billion each and can carry nuclear weapons. It hosts B-52 Stratofortress heavy bombers. It hosts nuclear-powered submarines. It hosts guided missile destroyers. It has been the launch point for American air campaigns in Afghanistan, Iraq, and now Iran. It has been considered, by definition, too far away to worry about from an Iranian threat perspective. Iran's foreign minister told the world last month, specifically on the record publicly, that Iran's ballistic missiles have a maximum range of 2,000 kilometers. Diego Garcia is 4,000 kilometers from Iran. Do the math. The base was, by Iran's own stated numbers, completely safe. The numbers were a lie. On Friday, March 20th, 2026, day 21 of Operation Epic Fury, Iran fired 2 intermediate-range ballistic missiles directly at Diego Garcia. One failed in flight. A U.S. Navy warship fired an SM-3 interceptor at the other. Whether the interception succeeded is still not confirmed. What is confirmed, by multiple U.S. officials speaking to the Wall Street Journal, by CNBC, by the Times of Israel, by The Hill, is that Iran reached for a target 4,000 kilometers away with a weapon it told the world it did not have. And today on Conflict Capital, we are going to tell you exactly what that means. Not for Diego Garcia, which was not hit, but for every American base, every American aircraft carrier, every American ally, and every military calculation that assumed Iran's reach had a ceiling of 2,000 kilometers. That ceiling just disappeared. Stay with us. Welcome back to Conflict Capital, where we track the moments that actually change the strategic map. If you're new here, subscribe right now and hit the like button. We go deeper on these stories than anyone else, and what we are covering today is one of the most significant intelligence revelations of the entire war. Let us get into it. To understand why the Diego Garcia attack is so alarming, even though the missiles did not hit their target, you need to understand what Diego Garcia is and why it matters so much. The base sits on a coral atoll, barely large enough to see from a commercial aircraft flying overhead. It is 27 miles long and 7 miles wide at its widest point. There are no civilians. There is no indigenous population. The Chagassian people who originally lived on the island were forcibly removed by the British government in the 1960s and 1970s, a history that remains one of the most controversial colonial episodes in recent British history, and one that Iran's foreign minister explicitly referenced this week when he said Keir Starmer was putting British lives at risk by allowing the U.S. to use the base. What there is on Diego Garcia, the reason the United States has fought to maintain its military presence there for 60 years, is geography. Pure, irreplaceable strategic geography. Diego Garcia sits almost exactly equidistant between the east coast of Africa, the Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, and the Persian Gulf. From Diego Garcia, an American B-2 stealth bomber can reach Tehran. It can reach Beijing. It can reach Pyongyang. It can reach virtually any target of strategic significance in the entire Eastern Hemisphere within a single mission profile. Before Operation Epic Fury began on February 28th, American B-2 Spirit stealth bombers launched from Diego Garcia specifically to strike Iran's hardest underground nuclear and military targets, targets that required the B-2's unique combination of stealth and the ability to carry the massive ordnance penetrator, the 30,000-pound bunker-busting bomb designed to destroy facilities buried hundreds of feet underground. Diego Garcia is not a forward operating base on the edge of a conflict zone. It is the platform from which American global power projection becomes truly global. If you want to understand why Iran chose to target it, even knowing the missiles would probably not hit, even using weapons it had publicly denied having, you need to understand that the message was more important than the result. Iran was not trying to destroy Diego Garcia on March 20th. Iran was trying to tell the United States something. Let us talk about the missiles themselves, because this is where the strategic revelation becomes most alarming. The reported attack marked Iran's first operational use of intermediate-range ballistic missiles, a significant attempt to reach far beyond the Middle East and threaten U.S. interests, the Wall Street Journal said. Let that sink in. Intermediate-range ballistic missiles, a category of weapon that Iran has never before used in combat, a category of weapon that Iran's own foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, told the world last month that Iran did not deploy in this range class. Diego Garcia is located about 4,000 kilometers from Iran, double the 2,000-kilometer range that Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi said Iran's ballistic missiles had last month. Double. Iran's foreign minister said 2,000 kilometers. The actual operational range, demonstrated in combat for the first time on March 20th, is at least 4,000 kilometers. The gap between the official claim and the operational reality is 100%. That is not an intelligence failure at the margins. That is a categorical deception about the fundamental capabilities of Iran's missile arsenal. Now let us talk about what 4,000 kilometers of range actually means on a map, because this is the number that should be sitting on the desk of every military planner in the United States, the United Kingdom, and every American ally in the Indo-Pacific region. Draw a circle with a radius of 4,000 kilometers centered on Iran's central missile launch facilities near Isfahan and Tehran. That circle covers the entire Persian Gulf, obviously. It covers all of Saudi Arabia, all of the UAE, all of Israel, obviously. It covers Egypt, Turkey, and Greece, less obvious. It covers Pakistan, Afghanistan, large portions of India, significantly more alarming. It covers the entire Arabian Sea. It covers the Gulf of Aden. It covers the Red Sea. And as demonstrated on March 20th, it reaches into the Indian Ocean far enough to threaten Diego Garcia, the base that was supposed to be beyond Iran's reach by a comfortable margin. Here is the list of American military assets that now fall within a confirmed 4,000-kilometer Iranian missile threat radius, which did not fall within Iran's acknowledged range before last night. Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, the largest U.S. air base in the Middle East, home to U.S. Central Command's forward headquarters, already obviously within range, but now confirmed to be targeted by weapons in a higher class than previously acknowledged. Naval Support Activity Bahrain, headquarters of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet. Camp Arifjan in Kuwait, major U.S. Army logistics hub. Al Dhafra Air Base in the UAE. Incirlik Air Base in Turkey, a NATO base that stores American tactical nuclear weapons. The American nuclear weapons stored at Incirlik have been a source of strategic anxiety for years, precisely because of their vulnerability. Those weapons are now within range of an Iranian missile capability that Iran officially denied possessing. Beyond the Middle East, American bases in Djibouti, at Camp Lemonnier on the Horn of Africa, within the 4,000-kilometer circle. The island of Diego Garcia itself, now confirmed as an intended target. And the circle is wide enough to raise serious questions about the security of American assets as far east as the approaches to the Indian subcontinent. According to a report by Israel's Alma Research and Education Center, Iran's arsenal mainly consists of short-range ballistic missiles, which reach up to 1,000 kilometers. Its medium-range ballistic missiles can reach as far as 3,000 kilometers, but the center says that, according to various reports, long-range ballistic missiles are currently in advanced stages of development. Read that last sentence carefully. Advanced stages of development. As of March 20th, 2026, Iran has demonstrated that at least some of those long-range missiles are not in development. They are operational, and they have been used in combat for the first time. The intelligence community's assessment of what stage Iran's long-range missile program is in just moved from development to deployed overnight. That is not a minor update to a threat assessment. That is the threat assessment being fundamentally wrong about the most basic question. Can this weapon reach this target? Let us talk about the specific mechanics of what happened on Friday night, because the details matter enormously for understanding both what Iran achieved and what it failed to achieve. Iran fired 2 intermediate-range ballistic missiles at Diego Garcia, but did not hit the U.S.-UK military base in the Indian Ocean. One of the missiles failed in flight, while a U.S. warship fired an SM-3 interceptor at the other, although it could not be determined if the interception succeeded. 2 missiles, 1 failed, 1 was engaged by an SM-3. The base was not hit. On a purely tactical level, this is an Iranian failure. The target was not destroyed, no American personnel were killed or injured, and the base continues to operate. But here is what military strategists are focusing on, and it is the analytical point that most news coverage is missing entirely. This was almost certainly a test. Iran fired 2 missiles. Not 20, not 100. 2. A country that wanted to actually destroy Diego Garcia and had hundreds of ballistic missiles available would not fire 2. It would fire a coordinated saturation strike designed to overwhelm the limited SM-3 interceptor supply on the single destroyer covering that sector of the Indian Ocean. 2 missiles is what you fire when you want to know 3 things. Does the missile reach the target? Does the guidance system work at this range? And does the United States have intercept capability in this part of the world? Iran got the answers to all 3 questions on March 20th. It now knows its intermediate-range missiles can physically travel 4,000 kilometers. It knows one of the 2 had a flight failure, meaning there is a reliability issue to address, and it knows there is a U.S. Navy SM-3 interceptor capability covering Diego Garcia, meaning any future serious attack would need to account for and saturate that capability. This was a data collection exercise wearing the uniform of an attack. Iran launched 2 missiles towards the Chagos Islands on Friday. just hours after Keir Starmer gave the US permission to use the joint UK-US base to target a new set of Tehran's missile sites. The timing of the attack, within hours of the British government's announcement that Diego Garcia could be used to strike additional Iranian missile sites, is almost certainly not a coincidence. Iran was sending a direct message to London as much as to Washington. If you let them use your bases to bomb us, we will reach your bases. The message to Keir Starmer was explicit. Iran's foreign minister said Starmer was putting British lives at risk by allowing U.S. operations from Diego Garcia. Hours later, 2 Iranian missiles were in the air heading toward the base. The Iranian government demonstrated, with actual weapons in actual flight, that this was not an empty threat. This brings us to the question of the Chagos Islands sovereignty dispute, which adds a genuinely bizarre geopolitical layer to this story. The UK agreed, in May 2025, to hand sovereignty of the Chagos Islands, where the Diego Garcia base is located, to Mauritius, which has long disputed the UK's acquisition and ownership of the archipelago in the Indian Ocean. US President Donald Trump has repeatedly criticized the UK's plan. Think about what this means in the current context. The British government is negotiating to transfer sovereignty of the island that hosts America's most strategically important Indian Ocean base to a small island nation, at exactly the moment that Iran is firing ballistic missiles at that base. Trump has called the handover deal, which was negotiated under the previous conservative government and inherited by Starmer's Labour government, a catastrophic strategic mistake. The Mauritius government, for its part, has not said anything about Iran's attack on a base that is legally still British territory, but may soon be Mauritian sovereignty. This is the kind of geopolitical complexity that does not fit in a 3-minute news segment, but matters enormously for understanding the long-term security architecture of a base that the entire American global power projection strategy runs through. Let us zoom out and look at what the Diego Garcia attack means for the broader strategic picture of the war, because this is where the implications are most profound. For 21 days, the United States has been conducting an air campaign against Iran from a position of assumed sanctuary. American pilots flying from Diego Garcia in B-2s have been able to assume that their home base, their fuel, their maintenance, their munitions, is beyond Iranian reach. American commanders at CENTCOM Forward Headquarters in Qatar have been operating with the assumption that they are beyond the range of the most dangerous Iranian weapons. Both of those assumptions need to be revised this morning. The revision of those assumptions has real operational consequences, not catastrophic consequences, not the end of American air superiority, but real ones. Bases that are within confirmed missile range require active air defense coverage. They require hardening of critical infrastructure. They require dispersal of aircraft and equipment to reduce vulnerability to a single strike. They require plans for what happens if a B-2 is destroyed on the ground. None of these things are impossible to address, but all of them cost time, money, and operational energy that the U.S. military does not have to spare in the middle of an active air campaign. There is one more dimension to this story that Conflict Capital wants to make sure you understand, and it connects directly to something we covered in our video about Israel's interceptor shortage. It is worth noting that the U.S. used one of its finite supply of SM-3 interceptors to bring it down. One more SM-3 gone. The SM-3 is one of America's most capable and most expensive missile defense interceptors. It costs roughly $10 million per missile, and it is the same family of interceptors that makes up the backbone of Aegis missile defense on American destroyers. Every SM-3 fired at an Iranian missile is an SM-3 that is no longer available for the next Iranian missile. Iran fired 2 missiles at Diego Garcia. One failed by itself, costing Iran 1 missile, costing the U.S. nothing. The other was engaged by an SM-3, costing Iran 1 missile, costing the U.S. one $10 million interceptor. Iran loses a cheap intermediate-range ballistic missile. The U.S. burns a $10 million SM-3 in response. That economic asymmetry, the same asymmetry we have documented across every dimension of this war, applies in the Indian Ocean, just as it applies in the Persian Gulf and over Israeli cities. Iran does not need to destroy Diego Garcia to achieve a strategic goal from this attack. It just needs to make America burn interceptors. And on March 20th, 2026, it succeeded at exactly that. What does all of this mean for you watching from the United States? It means the assumption that America's most important strategic bases are beyond the reach of Iranian weapons has been proven wrong in the most direct way possible, by Iranian weapons actually reaching for them. It means the war that started on February 28th as a targeted campaign to degrade Iran's nuclear and missile infrastructure has revealed, on day 21, that Iran's missile infrastructure includes capabilities that neither American intelligence nor Iran's own foreign minister publicly acknowledged. And it means that the question of how this war ends, how you get from 2 Iranian intermediate-range ballistic missiles over the Indian Ocean back to a world where Diego Garcia is a quiet logistics hub rather than a combat target is a question that becomes harder to answer with every new capability Iran demonstrates. The base that was supposed to be beyond reach almost got hit last night. It did not. But the fact that Iran fired means the world just changed. Here at Conflict Capital, we will keep tracking every development as this war enters its 4th week. Before you go, drop a comment below. Does the Diego Garcia attack change how you see the risk to American military assets in this war? And what do you think Iran is planning to do with the data it collected from this test? We read every comment and they shape what we cover next. If this video gave you the full picture of what really happened last night in the Indian Ocean, the picture the news gave you in one paragraph, share it. This is the kind of analysis that matters. Hit the like button, share this video, and we will see you in the next one. Stay sharp, stay curious. This is Conflict Capital.